Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, El Macho. Happy to be here with you guys this evening. We're live, we're national. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, here it is, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And while Los Angeles is burning to the ground, people's lives are endangered, all sorts of politics are being played, the Democrats are dodging absolutely everything. The mayor is totally, I would say, out to lunch, but that's more like Joe Biden. She's literally MIA, right? She got back today. This is Karen Bass arriving in the airport today, and she was caught on camera. And I've got to say, you know, I try to be somewhat empathetic here, but I saw a video clip and I sent it to our producer, Count Delacula, and I want to use this, right? I want you to hear this because she's being asked by people in the airport, reporters, others that have their cell phones out. People want to know what is going on here, Madam Mayor, and here is what she said.
$1, Madam Mayor. Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
All right, so if you're thinking, Rich, I'm only hearing the reporter. That's right. This woman didn't say a word. A word. Now, what I will say is that on her face, she did not have a smirk. She didn't look like Adam Schiff. She didn't look like Joe Biden. She looked like she got caught with her hand in the cookie jar, like she had failed the people. And that bit of contrition made me feel like, all right, well, you know, at least this woman realizes, holy crapola, I have messed this up royally. Because she did, right? When you're in politics, you have to understand politics. People are forgiving people. Most. Some, I should say. Not all. And the reality is when you're the mayor of a real big city like that, right, second biggest city in America, you're not going to get a pass for going to West Africa or anywhere else, Tahiti, Puerto Rico, it doesn't matter where you go. You're not going to get a pass for going on an intercontinental trip like that when there's wildfires going on and they only get worse. You're not going to get a pass when you've cut the fire budget by $18 million. And you're not going to get a pass when you run out of water, when the fire hydrants are running dry, right? Because that's actually happening. And this is something that I can tell. I've never heard of such a thing, right? But Rick Caruso, he ran for mayor in the past in Los Angeles. He was on Fox 11 today. And with respect to the L.A. wildfires in the Palisades, he says there's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. Listen to this.
But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this? What was your brush mitigation program? I heard you earlier talking about it's been dry because there hasn't been rain. That's not the biggest problem here. The brush up in these hills that are controlled by the city and the county, I would bet you that if they haven't been handled, mitigated, pruned, removed for probably 30 or 40 years. This was a disaster waiting to happen. And what's predictable is preventable. And who's paying the price are all of these people in their homes and their businesses tonight.
Now, there was a certain orange man bad saying the same exact thing, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. His name, El Trumpito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. Now he's the 47th, Donald J. Trump. And President Trump was saying this to Governor Gavin Newsom back in 2018, talking about the forest management, saying the floors need to be cleaned out. Yet it seemingly has fallen on deaf ears. Why? Because there was a concern over an environmental concern, let's just say. Listen to this.
There's been a lot of study going on over the last little while, and I will say I think you're going to have, hopefully this is going to be the last of these, because this was a really, really bad one. And I know Gavin's committed, we're all committed, I'm committed to make sure that we get all of this cleaned out and protected. We've got to take care of the floors, the floors of the forests, very important. You look at other countries where they do it differently, and it's a whole different story. I was with the president of Finland, and he said, we have a much different, we're a forest nation. He called it a forest nation. And they spend a lot of time on raking and cleaning and doing things, and they don't have any problem. And when it is, it's a very small problem. So I know everybody's looking at that, to that end, and it's going to work out.
That was Trump in his infinite optimism, right, back in 2018, saying, look, it's going to work out. Well, here we are again at the tail end of the Biden administration. Biden, of course, trolling Trump, saying, well, if you elect Trump, it'll be floods, there'll be fires everywhere. I mean, look at Biden's presidency, right? And again, this is why you don't say stupid things like that. Bottom line here, you've got to look at this stuff. And I'm going to apologize preemptively. I realize that there are human beings living in these homes that are being evacuated, and that if they're not dying by being burned alive, they are homeless and have lost all of their belongings. When I was 12 years old, I was in a fire. It happened super fast. Everything was lost. Thank God nobody in my family was hurt. But it's shocking, and you don't know what to do. And I watched the whole thing. I don't know, within, 10 minutes, 12 minutes tops, the entire building was top to bottom. Just the bricks. That was all that was left was bricks. I saw the devastation. I saw the torment on my mom's face because there were things she could never get back. Right? And you could buy a new couch, a new TV, things like that. But she had pictures of her grandparents, my grandparents, photo albums, things like, you just can't get those again. The negatives to those things. There was no digital in that era. This is, when I was younger. My point is I perhaps lack some empathy because I get caught up in the critique of how the elected people are handling this. And I don't want to come across as that guy that gets on here and politicizes a tragedy. I don't want to be that guy. But I will likely become that guy at my own chagrin. And I'll repent. And God will forgive me. But at some point, and I think that point came years ago, but at some point, I hope all of us collectively, and I'm not a big fan of collectivism, I hope that we can collectively realize that there is a political party that really is focused on serving self. That's all they're about. They exist to serve themselves. They worship at the altar of big government. They live their lives off of the largesse of the government, meaning your tax dollars. They know how to fix certain problems, and they neglect those problems, and they focus on things that simply don't matter. They hired a fire chief because she was a gay woman. Now somebody will say, no, Rich, they hired the fire chief because she's a 25-year veteran and she was the right person for the job. Well, I would hope that is the case. But when she was sworn in, all the news could talk about was how they got their first LGBTQ fire chief in L.A. And here we are watching L.A. burn. And as a outsider looking in, I've got to say, this woman's not doing a good job. And the things I've heard her say on the record about how they're hiring firefighters doesn't sound like she's trying to save lives, protect property, or do the right thing. Sounds like she's trying to push a political agenda. Now, I'm a little over time, but I want to play a really quick clip for you to introduce you to the fire chief of Los Angeles. Listen to this.
Super inspired.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that. She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
The chief also checks another box when it comes to inclusivity and diversity at this department. She's a proud member of the LGBTQ community.
That just kind of opens the door of people that thought, wow, I didn't even know that was an opportunity for me.
If you want to fight fires and you have the ability to climb stairs and throw a human being over your shoulder, that's an opportunity for you. Go for it and apply. I can tell you this. I don't care what color you are. I do care that you can take my nearly 200-pound frame and throw me over your shoulder and get me out of there. Now, if you're the size of one of my kids, right? My kids are 5 foot something, like closer to 5 foot nothing, and they're 110 and 115 pounds. Then I would say, as much as I love them, I don't think they're ideal to become firefighters. I want somebody that's like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I don't mean because he's kind of racially ambiguous. I mean because the guy is a rock, right? He's like 6'6" or whatever he is, and he could lift 2 of me. That's who I want as a firefighter. Anyway, just wanted to put that out there to be culturally and socially insensitive and tell the truth. All right, folks, coming up, I want to have some discussion on this with, according to my facts, the Assistant Deputy Insurance Commissioner for the state of California, the Assistant Secretary of State for the state of California during the administration of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. She joins us next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Palmer Avenue in Miami Way, we have this house on fire. Los Angeles Fire Department just drove by. I guess they're calling this a loss, but my concern is that this 30, 40 mile per hour wind gust, all these embers are flying downwind. It could possibly start more fire. Hopefully they're on the defensive down there. I do see another fire truck. But just look at this. Massive fire still taking place about 24 hours after this started. Pacific Palisades. This home is destroyed like so many others out here.
That is a live report from California by Matthew Sedor, Fox 11 Los Angeles, at the scene of the fires not too long ago. And we're hearing what's going on. We're hearing all the reports. This happens time and again. But as we look more into it, now we see that while we know things are happening, it's like saying, look, I run a city that's high in crime. Okay. I'm not going to blame all the crime on you, Mr. Mayor, or I'm not going to blame all the fires on you, Madam Mayor, but I can blame your response to an existing problem, right? I can blame that on you directly. If you don't bolster police, if you don't do things to resolve the crimes, like, let's say Mayor Adams, you don't do things to make things better, the buck stops with you. So I say the same thing to Mayor Bass. I say the same thing to her choice of fire chief, the 19th fire chief of Los Angeles Fire Department, Kristen Cowley, who is the 19th fire chief, but she's also the first female LGBTQ fire chief. And apparently that's, in my opinion, what my speculation is, that's why she's there. Not because of her prowess in fighting fires or preventing fires or anything like that. Now, I want to get some weigh in on the fires and the political stuff, and if I can twist her arm, I'm going to keep her for an extra segment, from the Assistant Deputy Insurance Commissioner for the state of California. During the last wildfires, or some previous wildfires, she gave daily updates as the spokesperson for these wildfires, so she knows what she's talking about dealing with all the insurance companies as the Assistant Deputy Insurance Commissioner. She also served as the Assistant Secretary of State for California, amongst many other leadership roles in communications in the state of California and for a major political party as well. And she's a regular on this program, but I didn't know she had all this knowledge about this stuff. So I'm really thrilled to have this conversation. Jennifer Kearns, Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, Rich.
So let's talk about this, because there's a lot of blame going around, and I made a statement prior to going to the break that I don't want to make this this is their fault, they suck, I hate the Democrats. I really don't. But I think we have to do some degree of that, right, to kind of call out what is, because people's lives are at stake, right? People's homes are burning. And I went through a fire, and I can tell you it's nothing. I don't wish it on any Democrat.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, I think most of us are fair-minded people. We're not like the Democrats. Whenever there's a school shooting or a mass shooting, we don't immediately wade into the crisis and start pointing fingers like the liberals do. But in the case of the California wildfires, this is now a repeating circumstance. This is as perennial as the flowers that grow on the hillside in Malibu and all over Southern California. These wildfires, they aren't just happening, they are becoming increasingly deadly, increasingly dangerous. And as you've seen, in the video that's being played today, this is becoming more and more of a problem. And there are Democrat policies, which we can talk about, which have led to exactly this problem. They have been facing down these issues for many, many years, and the state legislature in Sacramento continues to vote against, pretty common sense measures that would stop these wildfires from happening. And the governor continues to veto bills. And so to that extent, they do have some blood on their hands.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to get your take on this, some of your suggested solutions for this, perhaps your opinion as well on how this affects also policing and terrorism and everything else, and maybe a couple of political points as well when we return. Folks, we're coming right back with Jen Kearns, a.k.a. Jen Kelly. I don't know which one she goes by lately, so I'm using both. And she is the former Assistant Deputy Insurance Commissioner for the state of California. She's also a former Assistant Secretary of State for the state of California during the Schwarzenegger term. And I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion when we come back. Don't go anywhere. It's me, Rich Valdez, and our guest, Jen Kearns.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
They said, we have no water. I said, do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. I said, why don't you have no water? Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north of water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. I could have water for all of that land water for your forests. You know, your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dangerous.
That water could be routed. You know, you could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous, billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And, you know, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. And all they have to do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
we'll certainly get rid of the dead fall.
And get rid of the trees that are fallen.
Yeah.
That, of course, is President Trump, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th, now 47th President of the United States, on with Joe Rogan talking about this issue. And it seems clear as day. I mean, if he's nothing else but he is consistent. And this issue has been out there for a long time of poor forest management, not doing the right job, not diverting the water to where it needs to be, which leads to the silence from Mayor Bass today. Mayor Bass, again, I'm looking at that video. She definitely has a look of contrition on her face. She doesn't have the smirk of Harris, the smirk of Biden, the smirk of Newsom, the smirk of Schiff, right? These people always have this sinister smirk like, ha, 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 I'm smarter and richer than you. But no, she had this look of, oh, man, I screwed a lot of people over, and it looked like she felt bad. So for that, I give her credit. But she was silent. She had nothing to say about why she got out of Dodge and how everything has gone to hell, why she cut $17 million, why she's hired this, in my opinion, lacking competence fire chief, and why did Gavin Newsom allow, right? Why did the legislature allow insurance companies to cancel many of the fire insurance policies with residents in the Pacific Palisades, losing their insurance policies about 4 months before this fire? Why did all that happen? Well, I want to get some answers from the former Assistant Deputy Insurance Commissioner for the state of California. She also served as Assistant Secretary of State for the state of California under Governor Schwarzenegger. She's a regular on this program. You know her as Jennifer Kearns. We're going to call her Jennifer Kelly now. And she's with us. Jen, welcome back.
Hey, great to be here.
Now, let's talk about this because I said a mouthful right now. So you take any one of those points and we could start with Trump and the water management and go straight to the insurance because, I mean, this whole thing is crazy to me.
It is so crazy. And you've listed there are really 7 or 8 factors that led to this deadly inferno in Pacific Palisades. And I'm told just moments ago, one of our mutual friends, Larry Elder, just had to evacuate his home in the Hollywood Hills.
Man.
So that fire is spreading as we speak.
Prayers for El Dorado.
That's right, El Dorado. Look, this problem has been raging for several years. In fact, 15 years ago is when Nancy Pelosi decided to save that 3-inch fish. I call it a minnow.
The 3-inch fish known as the minnow. And it's remarkable to me that they would go through such lengths in order to save a fish and screw people over. I mean, it's truly beyond me. I think we might have lost Jennifer Kearns. If anybody in the studio can hear me, let me know if we've lost her. Okay, I think we've got her. I'm wondering if I'm still on the air. That's always fun. Anyway, yeah, you're right. This minnow, right? The SS minnow, like Gilligan's Island. How do you look somebody in the eye, right? How do you tell people, well, you know, we were concerned with the environment, and this environmental concern is what stopped us from doing the right thing with the water. We're trying to save a fish. Jen.
Yeah, and look, the fish is really a cover for what they were really gunning for with the shutdown of the flow of water to Southern California. And that is, in the north, they didn't like the growth, the development, the building of new houses, the building of big houses. And that is really why that's the backstory that most Californians know, that most people nationally don't know. It was really about the growth, and they don't like the housing growth and the housing boom and people's big houses. And that's a real sticky wicket for environmentalists. Well, look, in the process of doing that, they have robbed the farms in Central California, which also happens to be a Republican majority place in Kevin McCarthy's district there in Bakersfield. They've robbed the farmers of water. And
Devin Nunes is a farmer.
That's right. Devin Nunes is a farmer as well. And in the process, they also have robbed most of Southern California. And pretty much every county in Southern California, with the exception of LA, is also Republican. And so there are a lot of political narratives here. There's a lot of environmental narratives there. But the point is this, President Trump is right. It is over this, 3-inch fish. Was the reason they gave to stop the flow of water to Southern California. And what it has done is it has just created a huge tinderbox down in Southern California. And once a fire starts, and this is the only thing that Democrats are not to blame for, once you have those Santa Ana winds pop up and once you have one fire start, there's just really no way to stop it because the conditions are such where you have such dry shrubs, dry forestry. You have forests that, as Donald Trump said, they haven't let people go in and touch for the better part of 5 to 10 years because these tree huggers don't want people, stomping around in the forest and ruining their, beautiful trees. Well, then what happens? Then you have no trees to hug at all because now they're all burnt down, as you can see on these videos. So huge problems, 7 or 8 big problems there. The 8th problem, Rich, is water storage. The last 2 years in Southern California have been very rainy, in fact, and their reservoirs should have been running over. But the Democrats in Sacramento, aided and abetted by Governor Newsom, who has voted down water storage facilities. So when it rains, you can actually keep some of that water, build other reservoirs, build other lakes. They have just refused to do it for the reasons I said, because they know where you build water, you can build homes and you can build more homes, and they don't like that kind of environmental sprawl. Just ask the people of ELF who've tried to burn down apartment complexes in California in past years. So it is a real problem. Look, if anyone is living in Southern California, along a hill, along a ridge line, I always tell people, just know at some point you're going to get caught in the crosshairs of the Democrats and their environmental agenda.
Man, that is deflating, really deflating to know this was entirely, or for the most part, sounds like it was preventable. Folks, we are on with Jen Kelly at All American Jen on the social media. She's a radio host in L.A. in addition to her past service as Assistant Deputy Insurance Commission for the state of California and Assistant Secretary of State for the state of California, serving in the administration of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we're going to continue our conversation with her if she'll allow it, because I have some more questions. Are you able to stick around? Can I twist your arm or no?
Absolutely. Anything for you, Rich.
The best. I appreciate it. Folks, we're coming right back with Jen Kelly. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Greenland, not only has he been talking about it for some time, but a lot of people have been talking about it for some time. This idea of acquiring Greenland for strategic purposes has happened, for decades. And a close friend of Trump's suggested it to him in his first term, Ron Lauder. It's never totally gone away. But Trump is clearly in an expansionist mindset. He also keeps talking about Canada as a 51st state. That is clearly much more of a troll and sort of a dominance play. But in terms of Trump talking about military action, or at least not ruling it out, as Caitlin said, that caught a lot of people by surprise. It's not clear if that's actually something he's thinking about or something he said because he was quite visibly in a pretty bad mood during this press conference. I think primarily because of the legal challenges that he's facing this week in the New York criminal case.
That's Maggie Haberman on CNN yesterday. And a lot of interesting things there. You know, Clyburn yesterday saying that this is a distraction, all sorts of things. So I want to unpack this a little bit with our guest, Jen Kelly. In addition to her work as Assistant Secretary of State for California, she was also spokesperson for the California Republican Party, and she's a contributor on Newsmax as well as a radio host on KRLA in LA. So Jen Kearns, welcome back. Jen Kelly, excuse me. And I want to get your take on this Greenland play. Is this a real deal national security play as he's suggesting, which it seems to me that it is, but I'm curious as to your take.
Oh, I think it's real. I think there are some things, Donald Trump did tongue-in-cheek in his first term, but his second term, everything he is doing, he fully intends to sign, seal, and deliver. And I think the Greenland play is real, and here's why. If you look at our adversaries, countries like China, what are they doing? They're going around the globe. They're going to places like Africa, and they're actually working with the local tribes on the continent of Africa. The country of China is actually going in and buying water rights in places on the continent of Africa. Why are they doing that? They're doing it because they want to be able to own the land. They want to turn countries into their own military bases. So they can operate from those military bases against the United States of America and all of our allies. And so I think as Trump looks at the geopolitical map and the military map in some regards, he's looking for strategic bases where the U.S. military could potentially be. And what better place than Greenland to look down upon the United States of America, to be able to have eyes, around the globe. And believe me, I think that's only one of the places, he has his designs on. But I think the Greenland play, I think that is absolutely for real.
Let's talk about Canada. What about doing the same thing? Earlier this week, he said, we should take Canada off of the UK's hands. I think this is, it's very classic Trump. I get a kick out of it, but I think there's also the same strategic significance there, no?
Yeah, I think so too. And now I do think that Canada was a little more ribbing against Justin Trudeau,
sure,
a little more
buddy.
trolling, if you will. But look, nothing is really off the table when it comes to Donald Trump. I think he is fully going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, or at least the Gulf of the Americas. And look, it was very similar to what he did in his first 6 months in office when he went and spoke in Poland. And people said, well, what the heck is he doing in Poland? Well, it had a couple of layers to it, Rich. It was a direct dig at Vladimir Putin, because Putin was supplying and Russia was supplying most of the oil in the midst of winter to Poland. Mm-hmm. And then Poland couldn't come defend us, right? Because they're supposed to be one of our NATO allies. But gosh, if Daddy Russia is giving them oil, they can't exactly speak how they feel. They can't speak freely, and they certainly can't help defend the United States of America. So that was the first play. Donald Trump got some alternative energy sources in there for Poland. And number two, it rang back home. It was very popular back home in places like Pennsylvania, where there's a heavy Polish population. And he was doing that with an eye on a second term. And that was way back in the year 2017. So that's pretty remarkable. So that tells you kind of how Donald Trump's brain works when he looks at the whole geopolitical map. This guy isn't just thinking a step or two ahead like he did in his first term. He's really thinking 5, 6, 7, 8 steps ahead. And he's really thinking 30 to 50 years ahead for the United States of America.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. When you look at the map that he tweeted out yesterday, I should say, put on Truth Social, with the United States and Canada is like one simultaneous silhouette with the American flag in it. Well, it is, like you said, he's taking shots at Trudeau. I think it does make a lot of sense. And if you think the way the left always says Trump is this and Trump is that, one thing I would agree with them is that Trump does want to leave a legacy. And what better legacy than saying, hey, I'm the guy that, they took me out with this fake, phony, fraud election. And then I came back And then they tried to kill me before I came back. And then I came back and I expanded the United States and got us Canada, got us Greenland, did all this stuff. I think it makes a lot of sense. But here's what I want to dig into. Oh, man, and we're up against the break here. But a real quick question.
That what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It really is proof that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
You know what, Jen? Do you mind if I take one more break and ask you a question on the other side?
I'm here for it. Yep, absolutely.
You're the best. All right, folks, we're going to come right back, and we're going to find out from Jen Kelly why she believes that Trump is looking to expand the United States when so many of his supporters are all about, we don't want any more bases. We don't want any more international involvement. We just want America first. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want to apologize. If you're trying to get through to call the show and you're not able to get through, try calling in a little earlier. Forgive me, I've been long-winded this evening. But I want to wrap up our conversation with Jen Kelly, All-American Jen. And this is so interesting to me that you've got so many of Trump's supporters are America first, and they're against any intervention, and they don't want anybody's kids fighting foreign wars. They hate the deep state. They hate the military bases. They want everything, to just end. And I've always criticized this position because I think if America's not leading on the world stage, we're not leading on the world stage. Jen.
Yeah, look, there's only one way to be America first and to have that luxury to say that phrase, and that is if you have air superiority and military superiority. And so, do we want our kids over in wars? No. But could we have some strategic outposts where we can keep eyes on China a little better as they're in the South China Seas, as they're eyeing Taiwan, as they are running through the Panama Canal, as they perhaps might be off the east coast of the United States with drones? Yeah, sure. I think some Trump supporters would support us defending ourselves so that we can make America great again, focus on our domestic agenda, and put America first. But there's only one way you can do that. You have to have military superiority to do it.
Outstanding. Quickly, give us the website to buy your amazing book.
You can go to therealwaronwomen.com, or you can just find me on social media, as you said, All American Jen.
You're the best. I want to thank you for being here. Jen Kelly, you are the best. Godspeed to you.
You too, Rich.
You bet. Now, folks, but before we wrap here, I want to remind you again, thank you for all of your phone calls and for working with me while we get a lot of this news out here, a lot of this commentary and some of these longer conversations. I also wanted to alert you to anything you may miss, right? There is a third hour of this program, a third coveted hour that some of the affiliates may not carry. You can always get that on the replay. You can get it live, richvaldez.com, and that's Valdez with an S. And of course, I want to thank each and every one of you that's tuned in. We have a lot of new affiliates that joined us as of the new year, and we are all assimilating well with our new listeners, and I'm grateful for you guys. So, with that said, hasta la próxima. For those of you that are sticking around, there'll be more amazing programming coming up. For those of you that are bidding us adieu, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? It's another hour of the program. Welcome back. I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy to be here with you live this, what is today? Wednesday? Wednesday night. Is today Wednesday? Somebody tell me, please. Thank you. Thank you, Wednesday. And I never know what day it is. When you do radio at night, you lose track. Phone number 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And, man, there's a lot to discuss. We just had a wonderful conversation with Jen Kelly about what's going on in California. And, man, it's so crazy what's happening in California. You've got Biden, who's literally out to lunch. You've got the mayor there, Newsom, who's clearly out of his mind. You've got the mayor who's out of the country in Ghana, West Africa, who came back. She was completely silent when asked why she was gone. There was this look of just, empathy, apathy, contrition on her face. She was just like, I can't believe this is going on. Or maybe it was just feeling sorry for herself. Maybe she was just like, hey, there's no way I can ever get reelected after this. This is massive. Who knows? But she looked sorry, genuinely sorry. Sorry for who? I don't know, but genuinely sorry nonetheless. And she was silent. I mean, I can't stress that enough. You got to watch that video. The audio doesn't do it justice. That's Mayor Karen Bass. Then you've got the first LGBTQ fire chief. DEI strikes again. We're going to talk about DEI in a little bit with our buddy Professor Nick Giordano. He's coming up. He's going to join us to talk about DEI and some political topics like Greenland and Biden and everything else that's going on as we get closer and closer to Inauguration Day for El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. But I want to remind you that people are freaking out at these deadly fires because their homes are being burned, because the fire department is pulling up when they can, and there's no water in the fire hydrants. And this is something that I think, Trump has clearly warned about in the past. He was trolling Newsom earlier on Truth Social, saying the fires in Los Angeles may go down in dollar amount as the worst in the history of our country. In many circles, they're doubting whether insurance companies will even have enough money to pay for this catastrophe. Let this serve and be emblematic of the gross incompetence and mismanagement of the Biden-Newsom duo. January 20th can't come fast enough. And when you talk about not having water in fire hydrants, this is a failure of government, right? Listen to this.
My heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here.
Third world country. It sounds like a third world country when you don't have water in your fire hydrants. And this is clearly problematic. El Trompito, again, on Truth Social, blasting Biden as well, writing that, this is what they left for me. Let me see if I could find this here. I had it queued up, and now it's disappeared. But really just going after Biden, really attacking him, because, this is one of those things where they have no water, right? And this is the quote: "No water in fire hydrants, no money in FEMA. This is what Joe Biden is leaving me. Thanks, Joe." Trump wrote shortly after Biden attended a briefing in Santa Monica hosted by the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection alongside Governor Newsom and U.S. Senator Alex Padilla. Can you blame Trump? Right? He's coming into a disaster. And I mean, he knew that, and that's what he signed up for. But he's just reminding everybody before they try to blame this on him the way they blame everything else on him. But he talked about this. He talked about it when he was on with Joe Rogan. He's talked about it in the past as well, about how poor water management would ultimately screw everybody over, right? You can't protect one little fish and just not supply the water that you need. You know, then we learned from Jennifer Kelly that this was I'm going to call it a conspiracy, if you will, right? Put your tinfoil hats on, folks. Conspiracy because they wanted to have a degrowth agenda. They wanted to slow down the growth in Southern California, and they figured if we don't have water, there won't be more building. That's crazy, but that's real. So all of that's going on. And these aren't the only people that are, you know, trading barbs with Trump, right? Trump is throwing shots at them. There's people throwing shots at Trump too, right? Yesterday, Trump said he wanted to rename the Gulf of Mexico. And the president of Mexico fired back. Now, this is in Spanish, and since I speak Spanish, I'm going to translate it for you. But this was a very Putin-esque remark from President Sheinbaum of Mexico. Listen to this.
Obviamente, el Golfo de México es reconocido el nombre por Naciones Unidas, un organismo de Naciones
Obviously,
Unidas.
the UN recognizes the Gulf of Mexico.
¿Por qué no le llamamos América Mexicana?
Why don't we call the United States Mexican America? Sounds good to me. Let's call it Mexican America. Maybe they'd like that.
Y Golfo de México, pues, desde 1607.
She goes on saying that this is a name that's been around since the 1600s. You know, just taking shots at Trump because he took a shot at her. I guess that's how she sees it. And you gotta give her the A for effort, right? It's kind of like when Putin makes those remarks about the Americans want to criticize me, but they can't even figure out what's going on with the Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 if men or women, well, right? So one of those things. And I thought it was an interesting one to share. And speaking of Spanish, Trump wants to make Canada part of the United States, the 51st state. And I'm the first person in line to take umbrage here. I'm saying, no. I thought Puerto Rico was going to become the 51st state. Now, how is it that Canada, with all the lefties that elected Justin Trudeau, would not give us 2 Democrat senators, but somehow Puerto Rico magically would, right? Of course, this is fake, phony, fraud thinking from the likes of AOC and Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is here. But Mitch McConnell, he's not leader anymore. So I think if there's a shot at making Puerto Rico a state, it's coming now, especially with all the investment that you've seen going on in Puerto Rico. Trump being a big fan of Puerto Rico, sending a letter to the new governor of Puerto Rico. And by the way, the new governor of Puerto Rico has spent, 3-4 terms in Washington as a congressperson, a Republican congressperson. I don't understand where this thought process comes from. I've had these differences of opinion with people that are, better versed than I on what's going on in Puerto Rico, but I've had them with other people that are also better versed than I that agree with me that Puerto Rico would make an ideal 51st state, from tax revenues to everything else. So my thinking here is I think Trump is more on board with making Puerto Rico a state than some of his acolytes let on, right? I think there are people in his circle that are like, it's not worth the political fight. But they voted 3 times, 3 separate times, with more than 80% of the voters all across the island voting to become a state. So if they democratically, small d, right, decided to become a state and they sent it to Congress, why didn't Congress do anything with that? Right? Well, it's because of Mitch McConnell and people like AOC that agree with him. Now, since then, they've gotten others, people that I like, people that I respect, to jump on board and agree that this would be an automatic 2 Democrat senators. But I would say to you, are you to tell me that Canada is not going to do that? Now, of course, there's conservatives in Canada. Guess what? There's conservatives in Puerto Rico. That's the point I'm making, right? Puerto Ricans put Trump over the top. Allentown, Pennsylvania, Orlando, Florida. It's a very big population. The Bronx, New York. He did rallies in all these places, massive rallies. So I wouldn't sell the Puerto Ricans out just yet. I think they're a way more conservative bunch, a very faithful bunch that I think could really bring a lot of value to the table in making Puerto Rico a state. But I want you to hear what Trump had to say to the incoming governor of Puerto Rico. Here's a letter he sent to her, read by the senator, United States Senator for the shadow government, Zoraida Buxo.
Me encanta que pueda estar aquí en un día tan magnífico y compartiendo con todos nosotros nuestros mejores deseos. Voy entonces a leer la carta que le envía el presidente electo, el señor Donald Trump, en español y en inglés. Dice: The Honorable Jennifer González Colón, Governor San Juan, Puerto Rico, January 2nd, 2025. Dear Governor González Colón, congratulations that you take the oath of office as Governor of Puerto Rico. I'm so proud of your resounding victory and incredible commitment to making Puerto Rico great again. I look forward to working closely with you to realize your vision of a safe, secure, and prosperous future for the island. With your leadership, we can revitalize Puerto Rico's essential infrastructure, drive impactful economic development projects, foster fair trade practices.
Again, that is El Trompito's comments there to make Puerto Rico great again is how that letter ends. So I want to leave off on that note and switch gears to talk about another territory that Trump is taking aim at, Greenland, and what Joy Reid had to say about that. So we're going to talk about that in a moment with somebody who's no stranger if you are familiar with the old Tucker Carlson program on the Fox News Channel. This guy was a regular there, and he's going to break that down for us, as well as why DEI is relenting, but not gone just yet. Keep it locked right here on Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, the day that you welcome me to your show is a happy day for me. And I hope that America appreciates what you're doing because you're fighting a good fight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Familia, we continue our late night national town hall conversation. The phone number is 833-4VALDEZ. I see we have a couple of folks online. Our friend Cody from Montreal, Canada is listening from Vermont. We're going to get to you momentarily. Stick with me, Cody. Have a little patience. I got a few things I got to get to because ahead of you in line is somebody that I want to introduce to you, Professor Nick Giordano. He is a professor out in New York. He is the higher education fellow for campus reform. You've seen him on Tucker Carlson. You've seen him on Dr. Phil. He's been on our show plenty of times. He's a great friend and a tremendous source of knowledge. Professor Nick Giordano, welcome back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Rich. Happy New Year to your audience as well.
Amen. Now, I want to pick your brain on a couple of things. I want to talk about DEI. I know you write about that extensively, and I want to do that if you'll give me a little bit of time and indulge me. First, I want to get some geopolitical analysis from you, but in response to some geopolitical analysis from MSNBC's very best, Joy Reid. Listen to this.
But guess who would benefit from a potential war between NATO allies, Denmark and the United States? Yeah, Russia and their autocrat, Vladimir Putin. In fact, it's a point of Russian propagandists made on Russian state TV, telling viewers, quote, this is especially interesting because it drives a wedge between him and Europe. It undermines the world architecture and opens up certain opportunities for our foreign policy. He added that if Trump really wants to stop the Third World War, the way out is simple: dividing up the world into spheres of influence. Chaos and the collapse of the NATO alliance at the hands of the United States has been Russia's long-sought goal. And with this Greenland gambit, Trump is playing right into their hands. Surprise, surprise. And Putin doesn't even have to rely on just Trump to make his NATO-hating dreams come true. He's also getting an assist from Elon Musk. Having purchased the next U.S. president for $200 million, the world...
Hold on a second. $200 million. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to let her continue because I want Professor Giordano's response to this drivel. But I have to correct the record here and say $200 million from Musk is half of what Zuckerberg spent to try to get Biden elected. Or did we forget about that, Joy Reid? Go ahead, play the tape.
The world's richest billionaire seems to want to control the whole entire world, openly tinkering with governments, trying to duplicate his success in the U.S. by making all of Europe right-wing.
Professor Nick Giordano, professor of political science, I want to know, is Joy Reid onto something? Is acquiring Greenland going to spark a world war with Vladimir Putin because of a rift amongst our NATO allies?
No, not at all. She's completely wrong, but it's not surprising because it is Joy Reid. I mean, first of all, she's talking about breaking the world up into spheres of influence. I think that she has been paying attention for the last 10 years as China has been expanding to nearly every single continent on the planet, including South America. When it comes to Greenland, we've actually been trying to get Greenland for quite some time. You had President Truman, that offered to buy Greenland. So it's not a new idea. There's been a race to the Arctic for, the last couple of decades because of the vital natural resources there. And listen, you have a population of 50,000 people. According to Denmark rules, if they vote 51% that they want to leave Denmark, they get to. And so where are they going to go? Well, come to the United States. It's a very friendly place. And I'm sure Trump would reward him handsomely for it. But I don't believe, acquiring Greenland is going to be the spark of World War III. I think that when you introduce everything that's been going on over the course of the last 4 years, that's pushed us closer to the brink of World War III than anything else.
Yeah, without question. And Professor Nick Giordano, when you hear this type of nonsense, is this just knee-jerk reaction because Trump said it's got to be wrong? Or do you think there's really an animus towards expanding the territory of the United States?
No, I think it's just a reaction to Trump. I mean, let's be honest here. Anytime Trump says anything, they go into, DEFCON 1 and start freaking out over it. The reality is that you have to be strategic in the global community. The United States has to preserve the hegemony that exists. I mean, the reality is that the United States, a world order led by the United States, keeps the shipping lanes open. It keeps trade free. And that's the thing that we want to preserve. Whereas it's not necessarily about dominance, but it's about commerce. And going to the Arctic is something that's really important. When Trump talks about taking Canada and Canada becoming the 51st state, he's simply trolling, and he's not really going to take Canada. Panama, Greenland, those are things that we need to discuss.
Those are on the table. Folks, we're on with Professor Nick Giordano. We're going to continue this geopolitical discussion as well as add in DEI. Plus, your calls are coming up. I see people holding from Idaho, from Canada, and the lights are flashing. The phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. Getting to your calls momentarily. Stick with me, folks. It's Rich Valdez coming right back with Professor Nick Giordano.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, this is typical bluster from the president-elect. This obsession with Greenland and Panama really came out of nowhere and has been filled with mistruths and misunderstandings. I don't understand why this president is so committed at a time of global instability, of fostering more instability globally, of undermining our allies, and at the same time diverting the attention of our federal government toward issues like invading Greenland or Panama, while we should be focused on bringing down costs facing workers, retirees, and families here in this country. That's what our focus should be on. If this president's serious about an America First agenda, he should be focused on domestic economic issues, not some weird obsession with invading Greenland or Panama.
That is Congresswoman Sarah McBride, trans Democrat from Delaware, on CNN today, saying that Trump is just fostering more instability globally instead of bringing down costs. Now, it sounds like good rhetoric, like any political rival would bring. But I think the reality is what Professor Nick Giordano, the tenured professor from Suffolk Community College in New York, was just telling us about, is that we have to maintain global dominance, the hegemony, as you put it, in order to remain America first. And I know there's a lot of people on our side of the aisle that are really against expansion. They're against, they're truly isolationists. And I've always taken exception to this position because I think to be number one, you've got to be number one. You can't be number one if you're not number one, as simple as that sounds. Professor Nick Giordano, what do you think about Sarah McBride's comments here that Trump is fostering instability across the globe?
Well, two things. First, I find it hysterical because for the last couple of days I've been hearing Democrats talking about the price of eggs and milk and gas. And where were they for the last 4 years? All of a sudden
right.
They're starting to get interested in this. Maybe they should have campaigned on that. They would have had more success. But at the same time, when you look at the world order, I would much rather live in a world order that's controlled by the United States than one that's controlled by Communist China. And what they don't understand is the Belt and Road Initiative that China has laid out and has pushed forward for the last 2 decades, where they've made substantial gains in their influence and power throughout the world, buying infrastructure, building military bases, going for the critical resources. And the United States has taken a back seat. Now, as
they're doing it, we got to do it.
Well, not only that, as we've taken a back seat, particularly over the last 4 years, the world has grown more unstable because the United States has been losing power and influence. And when you have a power like the United States that's losing power and influence, it creates a void. And other countries are looking to fill that void. Iran, China, Russia have all done their part to try and make gains to acquire the power that we've lost. With Trump coming into office, talking about Greenland, talking about the Panama Canal. Well, this is reversing that trend. It's asserting our dominance, and no, we don't have to use military action. The neocons, they're the ones that always want to use military force, but you don't need to do that. It speaks softly, carry a big stick, and understand that the United States is still the most powerful country in the world, and we have to exert that influence. And that's what Trump is trying to do.
Really well put. And we'll put a point in that there because I agree with you, and I think you nailed it. Now, I want you to listen to a clip that I've got, a report about McDonald's. It's about DEI. Check this out.
McDonald's is the latest major company to roll back some of its diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. The fast food giant citing a Supreme Court decision that outlawed affirmative action in college admissions. The Golden Arches is not abandoning all diversity initiatives, but says it will retire specific goals, ending a supply chain DEI pledge, pausing participation in surveys from external groups, and no longer setting what it calls representation targets. But company executives insisting everyone is welcome under our Golden Arches. The announcement comes after Walmart, Ford, John Deere, and other companies recently rolled back their own DEI policies amid backlash on social media. As for McDonald's DEI policies, the company says it's been considering the changes for several months. Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
So the fast food giant McDonald's, one of my favorite Scottish restaurants ever, has become the latest company to roll back diversity, equity, and inclusion, Nick Giordano. And I think this is fascinating because I didn't even know that they had done that. I think that McDonald's, in my opinion, is always very diverse, but interesting that they're reversing that because I guess they're finding, meritocracy works better. What do you think about this?
Well, diversity, equity, inclusion has always been a losing proposition. It started on college campuses, and every single bad idea comes from college campuses and then filters out to the rest of society. But the rest of society has rejected it. I mean, let's be honest. When it comes to diversity, the United States has been diverse since its founding. There's no disputing that. And the idea of doing away with merit for this inclusion and equity just doesn't make any sense. You want the best and the brightest. You want people that are competent to fill positions. So not only have we seen corporations move away from DEI because they see it's not worth it, now colleges are beginning to move away from DEI. First of all, you have over 30 states, and we've been reporting it at Campus Forum, that have passed legislation or introduced legislation to ban colleges from employing DEI policies on college campuses. But there are colleges that aren't waiting for legislation. You have the University of North Carolina that has closed down 17 DEI offices that they had. I mean, think about that. 17 DEI offices. You were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that colleges were spending on DEI when it should have gone to student performance and student outcomes and helping students that when they graduate that they can find jobs. I mean, that college is a place for intellectual diversity. It's not a place for groupthink, and that's what it's become. We don't need our college campuses to be partisan battlegrounds. We need to train students to get them to think critically, to be able to read and write, and to become productive citizens of the United States to take us into the 21st century. Unfortunately, our college campuses have done away with that, and that's why you see the proficiency levels are low. You're seeing the incompetency at all levels of government, at all levels in corporations, and we need to change that. And I think that we're starting to see a change. Americans have thoroughly rejected the toxic nature of DEI that looks to divide society and simply indoctrinate people with this belief that America is an unjust place, that it's, oppressors versus oppressed, and all it does is instill a victimhood mentality. This is a great country. This is the land of opportunity. That's why millions of people come here. And I think that people have had it. I think that students want to go to school and they don't want to graduate with tons of college debt and then not be able to find a job. They don't want to be indoctrinated. And guess what? All those DEI programs on college campuses, you're taking the enrollment in those courses collapse. They can't fill those courses. And so sooner or later, the bottom line kicks in. Money is what talks, and that's why a lot of college campuses are beginning to close down some of their DEI programs.
Well, I think you're right. And, in much the same way, we see it happening everywhere. And while Americans might be rejecting this, Nick Giordano, I think that cities, states, local and federal governments have not in large part done that. And that's what we saw earlier, right? Earlier, I had a conversation with a former California state official, colleague of ours, Jen Kelly, and she was telling us about this fire chief in Los Angeles who is the first LGBTQ fire chief in Los Angeles history. And we're looking at what's happening in Los Angeles, and it's nothing short of a failure on so many fronts. And it's embarrassing to the point of our neighbors to the north are calling into this show to comment on it. So in a feat of old school talk radio, I want you to take a call with me. Cody is in Montreal, Canada on WVMT, listening out of Vermont. And Cody wanted to talk about DEI and the fire. Cody, go right ahead. You're on with Professor Nick Giordano and Rich Valdez.
It's an honor to speak to Professor Giordano, and it's an honor for you, Rich, to give me the platform to speak to American consciousness. It's actually Tony from Montreal. I know you know who
Tony,
I am.
Yes, my favorite Canadian.
Yeah, as we say in Italian, alla prossima, so we're back again. And I want to make a couple of points, okay? I've been following this fire thing because I have family in California down in La Jolla. I know they're not in the fire zone, but I agree with this professor 100%. If you go back to California law, the Bakey decision back in the 70s, which was against affirmative action, reversed affirmative action based upon the same DEI principles that are socialist, communist, Marxist type of equality issues that cannot work anywhere. And the fires in California today are a failure of this new policy where we are to dumb down society, we are to reduce consumption, and we are to use a type of governmental bullying to stop progress. So I'll give you an example. We also
Well, before you give me the example, I want to get some reaction from Professor Nick Giordano, because I think you're right. This is the government bullying the people. I think that's a really good way of putting it. Professor Nick, go right ahead.
Well, I agree with Tony, and it's great to hear from Tony. I mean, the reality is that the reason government bullies the people is to acquire more power, and they feel that if they could abuse, marginalize, label people, just like, the FBI did with traditional Catholics or parents at school board meetings, they want to silence any type of dissent to the socialist agenda. So I think he's spot on there.
Yeah, I agree with that, too. And I have to take a pause here because this is Radio Land. But I do want to remind you the phone lines are open. Looking forward to taking your calls. There's a few people on hold. We're going to get to you guys. We're also taking calls all throughout the next hour as well, which is the coveted hour of this program. Again, if you can't hear it live in your area of the world, you can always hear it at richvaldez.com. But keep it locked right here. We're coming right back. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Familia, Rich Valdez live with you for the next, hour, 2 hours. As many hours as they'll give me, I'll be here. And folks, again, our phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. I might get crazy and take calls all throughout the next hour just because I enjoy that. But anyway, and we've been covering so much and had so many guests with a lot to say that I haven't gotten to as many calls. But I promise you in the next hour I'm going to get to those calls. So if you never called in, now's a good time. And I want to come back to our conversation with Professor Nick Giordano, and I want to thank everybody that's on hold as well. Continue to hold, if you will. I got one more segment, the final segment of each hour. We call it Open Phones Across America, and I'm happy to chat with you. But Professor Nick Giordano, you write extensively about DEI in Campus Reform. Campus Reform is a great organization, and you are the higher education fellow there. I want to make sure people know how they can find all of your writing and all of your op-eds and all of your work. Where do they go?
Well, everyone go to campusreform.org, check it out. We put up a piece a week ago about the University of Michigan spending $250 million since 2016 on DEI. Think about how many college degrees that could have been for people from low-income areas to go to that school and graduate without a college debt. But instead, they wasted it on useless DEI programs, and that's the problem with DEI. So we try and keep the campuses honest, show Americans what's really going on the college campuses, and people could also check out the PAS report, pasreport.com.
Now, I know you have a background in Homeland Security prior to becoming a tenured professor, and I want to get your take on something. And this is pure speculation. I'm not a reporter. I'm not reporting any news, but there's been all this talk about drones, right? There were drones. They said they were looking for radioactive material. Nobody knows if it's the government. The government says we don't know. Other people say it's got to be the government because who else would it be? I saw one report say it was 50 drones that came right out of the water. I mean, just all sorts of craziness, right? And the latest that I'm hearing is that there's a missing warhead that was proliferated from Ukraine. They think it's here stateside on the East Coast, making its way to Washington for a surprise during the inauguration. Now, all speculation. This is not to alarm anyone. These are just things that I've heard that I can't confirm and I can't say are true. But when you hear theories like this, as a Homeland Security professional, emeritus, what do you make of that?
Well, if we're talking about a warhead, one of the only ways to really bring it in is through the port system. And just so everyone's aware, we have radiological detectors all throughout our port system. And these radiological detectors are extraordinarily sensitive. So I don't buy into that there's a warhead here in the United States.
Nor do I,
at least,
per se.
yeah, so I dismiss that. It is a bizarre situation because it's either the government, a foreign government, or a major corporation. And they're not getting any answers. And, you know, that's why I love government so much, because they sit there and they say, don't believe in conspiracy theories, but we're not going to give you any answers. So you guys could speculate all day long as to what's really going on. We need to know what these things are. We need to know the purpose, the intent. Is this the military just testing new technology? Is it a corporation that's trying to test new technologies? We have no idea. But you have a bunch of incompetent people within government that's leading this right now with the DHS Secretary Mayorkas, where he says, well, nothing to see here, don't worry about it. And, of course, that's going to make people only more interested in what's really going on. And this is where we need to hold government accountable. You know, where are the congressional investigations? I know the 119th Congress was just seated, but we do need answers. We need states, local governments, they need to be informed about what's going on because it's a dangerous situation. You have these things flying around. Every FAA, every flight log is supposed to be tracked. So did they file with the FAA? And if not, why not? And if we do know who it is, well, who is it? Explain to the American people. But the government hasn't done that yet, and that's why there's so many crazy rumors swirling.
Yeah. Folks, Professor Nick Giordano, he's a higher education fellow for Campus Reform. He's also, he was a regular on Tucker Carlson's Fox News show, and now he's a regular over there with Greg Gutfeld. He's a regular here. He knows what he's talking about, and he's a good friend. I want to thank you for being here, Professor Nick Giordano.
Thank you for having me, Rich. Always appreciate it.
You got it, brother. Happy New Year. God bless. Hope to see you Inauguration Weekend. All right, amigos, we continue. We are going to continue with some commentary, with some calls, with some audio, and a whole lot more. We've got another action-packed hour. If you're not in an area where we get it, then you'll have to stream it or catch it on the podcast. But it's coming up right after this, and we're almost there. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio, and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, amigos, welcome back. That was the voice of the legendary Larry King, who was the once host of this program. And he was succeeded by the late, great Jim Bohannon. And I have the opportunity to come in right after those guys. Third host in 40-some-odd years, 46 years. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here and to maintain the tradition of open phones across America. So I promise to do that. Next hour, I'm taking as many calls as possible. I promise to talk a little less, listen a little bit more. And we're going to talk about farmers. We're going to definitely talk about some farmers. We've talked about fires tonight, foreign acquisitions, farmers. Big show. So keep it locked right here, folks. If you're with us for another hour, amen. If not, stream it or check out the podcast mañana. And again, the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. There's more programming coming up right after this.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this evening. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ, in case you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation. Going to be taking plenty of calls this hour. I want to encourage you, if you've never called the show and you've always wanted to, today's your day. If you disagree with me, today's your day. And, of course, if you're a regular, we're about to get to you momentarily. I'm going to get to those. But a little recap of the conversation so far this evening. We've had some excellent conversation about the California wildfires. And depending on where you are in the country, you will get to hear my conversation with the Assistant Deputy Insurance Commissioner and the Assistant Secretary of State for the state of California during the Schwarzenegger administration, discussing the wildfires and the failures and the top 8 problems that Democrats have created that have led to this exact problem that they're having, these wildfires. And that's Jennifer Kearns, now known as Jennifer Kelly. And if you heard that conversation, great. If not, you're going to hear it in a little bit in the upcoming hour. But right now, I want to get your thoughts on everything that's going on in America at night, because Mayor Karen Bass, she was MIA. She was out in Ghana, West Africa, while this was happening in Los Angeles. You've got their fire chief being the first LGBT woman fire chief, and doing a miserable job, I'll say, at least from where I stand, it seems that way, putting all the emphasis on things that don't matter, like not caring how many qualified people, qualified by my standards, by her standards, it was, how diverse and different they are. And nothing wrong with diversity. I'm pretty diverse myself, right? I'm a Puerto Rican guy from Brooklyn. You don't run across many of us in the talk radio world. But ultimately, if you can't hold down a show, if you don't have what it takes, you don't have what it takes. And that's just how certain industries are. And I think fire chief should be like one of those industries where you can't fight fires and you can't hire the right people, then you shouldn't be in charge. Anyway, that's part of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the disappearance of the American farmer. That's a conversation we're going to have in a little bit, but how Trump's tariffs might be able to offset that. And I'm never a fan of tariffs. I am a fan of using them strategically against enemies. I don't think that it's something that we should use by and large all the time, everywhere, for everyone. Maybe I can be persuaded, but that's my take right now. I do hate the IRS. I hate paying taxes and all that. So we'll see how this plays out. I think it's going to play out very positively. And we have some conversation from Trump that we're going to hear on that. And we've heard that they've run out of water in Los Angeles. So many things are going on. Trump wants to take Greenland into possession of the United States. He wants to make Canada the 51st state, hopefully Puerto Rico as well, and rename the Gulf of Mexico, to which the governor of Mexico has fired back at El Trompito, saying, not so fast. You rename the Gulf of Mexico that's been around since 1600. I'm going to rename your whole country the Americas of Mexico. So lots of back and forth going on there. I want to get your thoughts on everything that's going on in America at night. I want to go to some of our OGs that have been patiently hanging on. Let's see, where do we go first? Let's go to Pat, Sedona, Arizona, streaming the show, KFNX. You can also stream the show from richvaldez.com. Pat, go right ahead, brother.
Hey, Rich. Great to hear from you. I kind of
likewise. Happy New Year.
I hope you had a great time. Spent some time with your daughters and stuff.
Thank you.
I had a great Christmas. I mean, everything's been great ever since what happened November 5th. And my word, I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and it's going to be hard. And just listening to Chuck Schumer during the break talk about how the Democrats really care about what the American people want and need, and Donald Trump doesn't. And, of course, we all know the total opposite is true about that. I mean, I guess we all wanted 20 million illegal aliens in our country. We wanted more crime. We wanted awful events happen to some of our people, murder, rape, stealing. Oh, yeah, we wanted that. Yeah, I tell you what, Democrats have no idea. They're running, and they're running scared, and which is good because, you know what? Actually, deep down, I have a lot of Democratic friends. They're good people. They need to see the truth, and they need to wake up. And I'm so glad more and more people are waking up. And I don't rub it in their faces. And I'm not rubbing it in anybody's face right now. What I'm saying is we have to work together to change everything. It's going to be a long haul. There's going to be a lot of things. We're going to still hurt. I don't think prices at the grocery store are going to come down significantly for a little bit. But I tell you what, it start with the oil. You have to move it, and you can bring the cost down. That's going to help right there. And, keep this interest rates, keep the inflation under attack. I think Trump's going to do that. He's putting a lot of people in there. I mean, I love Musk. I mean, he is such a character. And great, he's going to be in charge of the efficiency part of our country. And I like Joe Kennedy. I like that Democrat, that good old Democrat, going to look after our food and the health of our people. That is so good. There's so much good going to happen, and I can't wait. We got 12 more days, and I'm counting every day because it's been like we've been in the dark of a tunnel, and we're seeing.
Pat, I think you're spot on here with a few things. Number one, energy's where it's at. You're right. We're not going to see the prices in the grocery stores come down until we really address not only inflation, which I think they're working on addressing, and that's going to take a while, but we also have to work on energy. And when they talk about inflation, they give us these fake numbers, but everybody knows whatever number they're saying, we all know what we paid for gas before. We all know what we paid for food. And yesterday, Trump talked about this when he was in the press conference that he gave at Mar-a-Lago. I got a clip of it. Check this out.
It's always hard to bring down prices when somebody else has screwed something up like they did, but we'll bring them down. We'll get them down. Energy is going to bring down prices. We're going to have a lot of energy, and energy is what brought it up. Energy and their bad spending is what brought it up, and energy is going to bring it down. We're going to have prices down. I think you're going to see some pretty drastic price reductions. As an example, food, bacon, ham, apples, everything has gone through the roof. It's one of the reasons I won.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons he won is right. And Pat, I think you hit the nail on the head. Sounds like you and El Trompito are singing the same tune. I want to thank you for your call, my brother. I got to take a pause here because I want to switch gears. Staying on this talk about energy, I also want to talk about tariffs, and I want to switch gears and talk about farmers and how tariffs are going to affect farmers, because it wasn't that long ago that Trump was meeting with Justin Trudeau and talking about tariffs with him. It wasn't that long ago that Trump was meeting with the Economic Club of Chicago and talking about tariffs over there. So I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come back and continue this conversation on tariffs. We're also going to talk about what's going on in all the rest of the world, including the U.S. territory of the Philippines. Not really. And but we will get to that. And what's going on with China as well. So don't go anywhere, folks. It's Rich Valdez. Open phones across America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our late night national town hall conversation with you, we the people. Here's the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I'm going to get to your calls in a moment. We got calls from Montana, calls from the Philippines, more calls that are flashing in. But before I get to the calls, and I encourage you to call, I want to talk about a few things that are happening internationally, whether it be China, whether it be the Pacific Islands, or the UK, right? Because there's been a little bit of a rift, and our buddy Pat just mentioned Elon Musk before, and Musk is going at it with Starmer. Starmer, of course, being the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, speaking in the House of Commons yesterday, and I was listening to what he had to say, and he was, having a back and forth with folks about these grooming gangs. And this is a big thing, and Nigel Farage and Elon Musk have gotten into this, and I really haven't gotten into too much of that conversation. But Kemi Badenoch, who's a conservative leader in the UK, was at the House of Commons yesterday slamming Prime Minister Starmer for refusing a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, saying, look, it's not about you, it's about the victims. Check this out.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is being very specific. Because I have raised this issue, I've raised it in speeches, I've raised it publicly. He knows that as a minister, I would not have been speaking on this specific issue. I was not a Home Office minister, but Mr. Speaker, I will remind him about other victims who came to me who I did help. The victims of the Tavistock scandal who came to me as a minister. I didn't send them away like his safeguarding minister. I made sure, as his Labour Party were calling me transphobic, that we launched the CAS review, which even his health secretary has accepted. So we do right by victims, Mr. Speaker. The reason why a national inquiry is important is because this issue is systemic. It has been involving local and national officials, the police, prosecutors, and politicians. He talks about some of the local inquiries, but these interlinked issues cannot be covered by local inquiries alone. In fact, the leaders of the Manchester inquiry resigned because they couldn't get evidence, they couldn't summon witnesses, and not a single person in a position of authority has been held to account. The Prime Minister called for 9 inquiries in the last Parliament. Does he not see that by resisting this one, people will start to worry about a cover-up?
That, again, is the Conservative leader in the UK, Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch. And maybe it's Badenoch. But either way, this is the debate that's going on, grooming gangs. And listen, whatever's happening in Europe is coming this way. I can tell you that. It'll end up in Chicago. It'll end up in Los Angeles. It'll end up in New York. It'll make its way throughout the rest of the country, just like all the rest of the bad European ideas. Everything always starts over there first, in my opinion, and then makes its way over here when it comes to left-wing craziness. So I'm glad they're trying to put an end to that now. And I want to get your thoughts on this. I want to get your thoughts on what's going on with China, your thoughts on what's happening in the Philippines, your thoughts on everything else. Open phones across America. This is where you get to weigh in on everything that's going on in America at night. Of course, the phone number 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, listening on KOFI. Frank, go right ahead, sir.
Hi, Rich.
Hey, Happy New Year, Frank.
Earlier this week, it was announced that China now wants to build the world's largest dam. Now, they already have the world's largest dam, but this one will be 3 times larger. It'll be close to the India border. And, you know, it's very close to where there was some earthquakes earlier. Was that yesterday? It was just several people died. But it's, you know, it's on a fault line, a very dangerous one to be building something like that. And they said on the Three Rivers Gorge Dam, that was built, and it's not totally cured. You know, there's still wet concrete in there that just hasn't solidified, and it could go. And if that goes, it'd take about a third of the mainland population out, just flood everything out, and it'd be just horrible. Probably looting.
Sounds like the water equivalent of a wildfire, just wiping everything out.
Yeah, if anything is a fear is their stupidity. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for bringing us up to speed on that, Frank. I appreciate it. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that these things are in the works. I mean, crazy things are afoot. I mean, if you look at what we just listened to, this conversation back and forth about an inquiry into what they're calling grooming gangs. These are, in effect, rape gangs, right? This is crazy, right? This is crazy stuff that we're talking about here. A dam that could wipe out, as my mom would say, medio mundo, half the world over here. Not good at all. What are your thoughts on the wildfire situation in California? I've stunned you with my head of hair. That's a Levin line, by the way. Okay, very good. We continue. Let me see where we want to do. We're going to go to Memphis, Tennessee. But first, we're going to stop in Manila, Philippines very quickly and talk to our buddy Gil. What's going on, Gil? What do you think about the craziness in the UK?
Well, what I wanted to discuss is there's a movement afoot here in the southern part of the country to secede from the Philippines and rejoin the United States as part of Mindanao and the island of Sulu. And if you want to get the details, you can put this into your search engine. Sulu, spelled S-U-L-U, wishes to become U.S. territory. And there's an article there written locally about the people there who wish to become part of the United States. So wow. I thought you might find that interesting.
That is interesting. It would be interesting. I'm waiting for Trump to tweet that out on Truth Social, right? We're taking back the Philippines, making it great again. Listen, I don't know if they're on board, if they're not on board, but it would be very interesting to see that conversation. It would be more interesting to see the reaction from our friends on the left. That would be crazy. Gil, thank you for the update on that. I appreciate it. And whether it's these gangs of Pakistani Muslim men pimping out white working class girls up and down England for the past 20 years, or building a dam in China, or taking back the Philippines, there's a lot going on around the world. And a lot of that stuff ultimately affects the American farmer. And we're going to have a conversation about the American farmer coming up straight ahead, plus your calls. We've got people on hold from Tennessee, from New York, from other places around the country. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. This is Open Phones Across America with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want to talk about farmers. I want to talk about billionaires, Zuckerberg, California, wildfires, All sorts of stuff is on the table. The phone number, 833-4825, 337-8334. Getting to your calls momentarily. But first, I want to remind you of a conversation that El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, had with respect to tariffs at the Economic Club of Chicago just a couple of months ago. Listen to this.
You talked a lot about tariffs. You look at the American economy, 40 million jobs rely on trade. It accounts for 27% of GDP.
Okay.
If you cut that off, that's also going to have an effect on many, many business people here.
Yeah.
Tariffs also have another side. Isn't that something that you have to acknowledge?
No.
You could be plunging America into the biggest trade war since Smoot-Hawley.
But there are no tariffs.
You're going to stop. There are tariffs already at the moment.
There are no tariffs. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States, and you don't have any tariffs.
People, a lot of places like this, there are a lot of jobs that rely on foreigners coming here. You're going to basically stop trade with China. You're talking about 60% tariffs on that. You're talking, as you said, 100, 200% on things you don't really like. You're also talking about 10, 20% tariffs on the rest of the world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive in terms of the economy.
I agree it's going to have a massive effect, positive effect. It's going to be a positive, not a negative.
Well,
let me just tell you. I know how committed you are to this, and it must be hard for you to spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong.
In true Trumpian fashion. But this is the current debate, and I understand there's a lot of concern about tariffs, but even more concerning is what happens to Made in America if everything is coming from overseas. Right? Well, we've already seen the effects of that during COVID and at other times. And I want to have this conversation with Brian Reisinger because he's got an excellent book about this. He wrote the book Land Rich, Cash Poor, My Family's Hope and the Untold History of the Disappearing American Farmer. And I think this is an important conversation to have amidst the tariff conversation. Brian Reisinger, welcome.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So let's spend a couple of minutes trying to unpack a little bit of why you decided to write Land Rich, Cash Poor, and tell us about your family's hope and the untold history of the disappearing American farmer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up working with my dad from the time I could walk. We're a fourth-generation family farm in the hills of southern Wisconsin. And as long as I can remember, there were guys driving into the driveway in their pickup talking about this farm had gone under, that farm had sold. I knew farms like the one I grew up on were disappearing. What I didn't know was why. And as I pursued my career off the farm in writing, first in business journals, then in public policy, I began to see that we had an economy and a political system that had left the American farmer behind. And so I wanted to answer the question of why. And so with Land Rich, Cash Poor, what we do is we dig into the hidden areas of history driving that disappearance. Why are our family farms disappearing? What's the impact it's having on our country and our economy? And then we weave that with our family's four-generation story, thriving in farm country from the Great Depression to today.
And in your estimation, what I guess what is the remedy? Is it solely an America First program like Trump's, where he's focusing on tariffs? Is that the only remedy, or is there more?
Yeah, it's fairly broad. It took us decades to wipe out 70% of our farms, and if we want to save the rest of them, it's going to be a solution for the long haul, So I do think that addressing trade is part of it. We've got to make sure that we wipe out these unfair trade standards from other countries. We can do that with a targeted trade strategy that can allow us to wipe out those unfair trade standards and still find fair markets for farmers around the world. You hear a lot of things about tariffs. You hear a lot of things from farm country about tariffs. You hear about how farmers want to wipe out unfair trade. They want to get tough. You also hear ag groups talk about how, too much tariffs from us leading to tariffs by other countries is going to make it harder to sell American goods abroad. The reality is that there's a way to do that. We can get tough, and we can find more markets for farmers abroad. What we need to do is have a targeted trade strategy that wipes out these challenges and allows us to open new markets where people want to do business with the American farmer and the American worker in a fair way.
And what's your thought on how tariffs are going to play a role for slowing down the disappearance of the American farmer?
Yeah, we are in a unique position here from the American standpoint, given President Trump's first term, because the world knows they have to take his tariff threat seriously. They know he's willing to do it. And so that's leverage. And so if that leverage can be used to make China stop its cheating, if that leverage can be used to get individual countries to make these small targeted trade deals with America that are more beneficial to us, we dispense with these great big trade deals that have all these trade-offs, all these bad things that you get along with the good. Instead, we deal with one country at a time on one product at a time, and we strike these really advantageous deals. If we can do that, we can wipe out unfair trade that's driving down prices for American farmers, and we can open up new markets for our farmers at the same time, both get tough on trade and sell America boldly abroad. And if we can do that, I think it can help slow down the loss of farms. We have to be careful that we don't lose control of the situation and that we don't wipe out farms in the middle of, sort of a global catastrophe. But if we can focus on using our leverage in a smart way, it can help slow down this issue and help us turn it around.
And in the couple of minutes we have remaining, I want you to take a moment and, kind of walk us through the big takeaway that you want to leave with readers of your book.
Yeah, the big takeaway that I have is that this problem is impacting every American, whether they've set foot in a barn or not. So it's devastating rural areas like where I'm from. It's hollowing out rural America. But it has an impact on our food supply, which affects every single American dinner table. So it's affecting the price of our food. It's affecting the health of our food. It's affecting the security of our food. And there's all kinds of other issues that this crisis of our disappearing farms is also affecting. So we all need to care about this, and anybody who's gone to a grocery store and seen the prices to the roof can understand why we need as many strong family farms as possible to be providing the food that we need to feed this country.
Yep, really well put. Now, I want you to tell everybody, Brian Reisinger, where they can get a copy of the book or 2 copies so they can get one and give one away.
I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. You can find Land Rich Cash Poor on Amazon or anywhere else you buy your books online. You can also find it in bookstores nationwide. They'll have it, or they can order it for you.
Outstanding, brother. Well, thanks for making some time to speak with us tonight. I will definitely be in touch with you again as we have more farm-related news that I'd like to get some of your commentary on. Good luck with the book, and Godspeed, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You bet. And amigos, we continue with your phone calls, open phones across America. Your calls and more, Montana, Memphis, Tennessee, Salem, Arkansas, New York, and more, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with you all, we the people, the American people. And it is open phones across America, a time-honored tradition on our program. And I try to do it in the last segment or 2 segments of every hour. Next hour, we've got a lot to discuss with our esteemed guest, Jennifer Kelly. So I may not do a lot of calls. I apologize in advance. But I'm taking your calls now from now to the end of this hour. Let us go to Bill. Bill is in Silver City, New Mexico on KNUW. Welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This is our first week with you. So,
welcome to the family. It's a pleasure to be on KNUW, a brand new station in New Mexico. What's on your mind tonight, Bill?
Well, the source of these fires in California, out here in New Mexico, what I've noticed is the homeless are the ones that start them all the time. They cook with fires. They don't have any other way of cooking, and this is what they do. And they don't care that these things get out of control. They don't really have, abundance of waters in their little homeless sites, and they don't really put them out to the same standards we do, like when we camp in the national forest. So I think something has to be done about the homeless and what they're doing. The second thing was about water shortages in California. I'm a plumbing contractor, plumbing, heating, cooling contractor, well versed in solar energy. All the swimming pools and the watering of the lawns and all that decorative stuff that they're using drinking grade water for is really, we can see now why we have shortages. I know in this neck of the woods they count on approximately 8 foot of water a year evaporating. We're at 6,000 feet, and we're not a desert, but we're well wooded. But I know that every time I see photographs of the luxury pools in the California area, they don't have floating covers on them. They don't have the reel at the end that you wind them up on. So they're losing all that water to evaporation. And there is a movement among the plumbing folks to use recycled water just for toilets. Don't drink it. They have this purple pipe that you run into the houses, and that's got the recycled water. And, there's things that they can do to cut their water consumption. The third thing was I heard that George Soros just got one of those medals of freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is so pathetic. I want to, I know that we have, frozen assets of countries at different times for different reasons. It's time to freeze George Soros's assets and use them to pay for removing all the illegal migrants that have been brought up here. And I haven't heard anybody talking about that. And I think it makes total sense to freeze those assets, seize them, and use them.
Well, listen, that's an interesting idea. And I would suppose if we could find him guilty of some sort of crime, we probably could try to do that. But there's such a web of organizations. He funds this, he funds that, this purchases that, this one funds that, this guy funds a race, this guy gets so-and-so elected, and so-and-so enacts the laws. So it becomes, he's playing by the rules in many cases, his own crooked philosophy, but by our rules. I appreciate it, brother. This is a great call, and one I could probably spend a lot more time on. Bill, Silver City, New Mexico, new station, KNUW. Welcome to our family here in Late Night. And I want to continue. I want to go to Joseph, Memphis, Tennessee, WKIM. Welcome.
Hey, how are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you.
I just wanted to weigh in on the Zuckerberg free speech.
Yep.
So when you get to the level of richness that Zuckerberg had got to in his life, you want to kick back and kind of vacation or whatnot. The last thing you want to be doing is fighting a corrupt federal government like the deep state and, the Biden administration. So, the Biden administration and the deep state, they went so far as to take Trump off of social media. They would have took him off the whole internet if they had had the ability to do it. Well, if they can do that to the U.S. president, what are they going to do? What could they do to Zuckerberg? They could say that he had monopoly, break up his companies. I'm not taking up for Zuckerberg now because he's upset me several times. But really, you can't blame him. You can't fight those guys. You can't fight them.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to say Trump fought him, right? And I guess Trump is a unique example, but he definitely did fight him, and he figured out how to do it. And it's to think in a manner that's 5, 6, 7, 8 steps ahead of them, and knowing what they're going to do, and knowing that if you do this, they're going to say you're a rapist. If you do this, they're going to say you're a rapist. If you do this, they're going to try and unearth something from your past. Right, and it's not just Trump. They do it to everybody. They've been doing it since the times of Clarence Thomas, right? Anita Hill. For Trump, it was 19 women that they said he raped. Then it went to be E. Jean Carroll. Then they said, look, we know you didn't rape her, but we're still going to find you liable for whatever it was, this many millions of dollars. It doesn't end, right? So I agree with you. They are going to figure out a way to get you if they want to get you. And perhaps, but for being a billionaire, you don't have a way of fighting back. Unless you know how the media works. And I think Trump has a good understanding of that. And so does Zuckerberg. I think he just doesn't have the spine and the grit that Trump has. But you're right. They likely had him under pressure, and that's why now he's singing a different tune. I give him the benefit of the doubt here. I don't know if he's just a fair weather friend going however the wind blows, or if he's actually, really had a repentant heart, if you will. But either way, I give him, I take it at face value, and I say, yeah, I'll take it because I think it's a win. Joseph in Memphis, Tennessee. Stay safe out there, my brother. WKIM. Shout out to everybody listening from Tennessee. And let me see, what do we do here? we do one more. Al, Kalispell, Montana, KOFI. Go for it.
Hey, Rich. Let's remind
Happy New Year,
everyone. Al. Hey, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
It's the American Canal in Panama.
Oh, kind of like the Gulf of America. I think the President Sheinbaum of Mexico took exception to that, and I wonder what the folks in Panama would say. As far as I know, it's always been the Panama Canal, but you're right. That is a canal that we built, and now all of a sudden it's in the hands of others than the Americans, and I think that is interesting, and I'm glad that Trump pointed that out and is making good on his campaign promises and his ideas. Al in Kalispell, Montana, KOFI in the building. Thank you, brother. I appreciate the call. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls. Joe in Salem, Arkansas is coming up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you this evening. Happy to be here with you. And our phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to go to Joe calling us from Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Joe, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Rich. These California fires, that's a new definition of insanity. Now, what they need to do is, I guess liberalism is a mental disease after all. They need to follow Arkansas and Missouri. We haven't had any big tragic fires like that in ages because we have burn bans and bad hot weather with high winds. Everybody takes it seriously. A lot of people are property owners. I'm in the middle of the woods. We have fire breaks, fire roads around the fence line of the properties, and clear cut a little bit for fire breaks and stuff. And they do that in the national forest. Now, I hope Donald Trump knows mismanagement is the original problem, and I hope that he takes the jurisdiction that is there over the national forest at least and make sure that's all done there. And then the private property owners will have to do something about that because I understand they're not allowed to burn at all, even control burnings. But my heart and prayers go out to these people. I mean, this is terrible. But anyway, the Bible prophesies all this. It talks about, he ordered man to dress and keep the earth. Well, they're not doing it out there. They're not dressing and keeping it. Old growth is the problem. They got to get rid of it at the right times of the year. Like around here, people burn off 100 acres at a time on the right
and
day.
You know what? That's when you're doing good forest management. But when you have bad forest management, you end up with the problems that we're seeing in California, and it's a shame. Thank you, brother Joe. I appreciate it. Folks, if you're sticking around for another hour, you're going to hear an amazing conversation with the former Assistant Secretary of State for California, Jennifer Kearns. If you're signing off here, take care. Hasta la próxima, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.